So, Lone Rider here, riding in the woods. The place I normally ride over on that side of the river is kind of underwater. It's a nice day, but the water stuck around after the river flooded during the few rainy days we did have. So, went on this side. I've never been this way before. I'm going to see where it goes, but figured in the meantime, I did say I would do a review of the Spyderco Native5 lightweight in s35vn steel, and here it is. So this is your Spyderco Native5 lightweight. It is CPM s35vn. The current production, I believe, is all s30, but you can still get these. They still have them in stock. They've got basically both. And this, I'm going to compare this to the Delica because that's the one I use most often, and actually they're about the same size, but there's a lot of differences. So first off, obviously, is the blade steel. You know, the Delica's VG10, this is s35vn. Secondly is the blade shape. The Delica is narrower and has a bit of a hump at the back to accommodate the hole. This is wider, so it actually doesn't need the hump. It gives a much more streamlined look to the knife, but some people like that hump ergonomically. I'm not one way or the other sold on it. Another thing is this is thicker blade stock. The Delica's a lot thinner all the way down. This is thicker, especially near the base. Now that makes for a little more robust interface here with the liners and the pivot, and allows you to have a thicker lock bar, which I'll get to in a second. But one of the things it does do is it means that when you're cutting through things like cardboard and you get about to the last third of the blade, you do meet more resistance. So that's something to keep in mind. Now onto the handle, including the lock bar. I'll talk about that first. This is a lot thicker. It's a back lock just like the Delica, but the lock on the back is a hell of a lot thicker because the spine is a lot thicker. And a nice touch, there's texturing on the back that actually continues over onto the lock bar. I don't know if you can see that. Most of it's on the back of the blade, but there's a little bit here. So when you open it, it fits all the way across. Now the lock bar doesn't have the dent on it to prevent accidentally triggering it. That's not a problem for me, and it does give it a cleaner look. You have that uninterrupted gentle curve. The only problem I found initially was feeling. I found that that dent, although it was never an issue to keep it from opening by accident, was useful for just feeling where the lock is if you're not looking at the knife. So, yeah. Now you can still do that with this because it's cut out on the sides, so you just feel where there's no, where there's a gap in the FRN handle scales. But it just takes some getting used to. If you're just feeling down the center, you're not going to feel that dent. One of the cool things is because it is thicker, it's a lot more comfortable to use. Also, if you hold the lock down, which is easier to do because it's thicker and less uncomfortable, you can actually flick the blade out sometimes. There you go. Now onto that handle. This is what usually makes or breaks this for most people. The Delica doesn't have a forward finger groove, so you got to just put your finger on the ricasso. This is designed more or less to be held like this. And a lot of people say they hate that. They like the idea of having a forward finger groove as an option. They hate being forced into it. The truth is you don't have to hold it like this. When I was using this, first few days I was holding it mostly like this. Now when you do that, you have to be careful that this little nub that sticks out doesn't get caught on things, but yeah, you can hold it like this, you'll see. My fingers are all on the handle. They're near the end at the very end, but they're all on the handle. Now that may depend on the size of your hands, obviously, but it's certainly something to think about. You can use it that way. Also, a lot of times I was just holding it pinched like this on the pivot area, so that's another thing to consider. And I did hold it the way it was intended, and it was very comfortable that way as well. Now the handle is FRN, fiber reinforced nylon. There are no liners though. If you look inside there, you won't see any. There are some ridges molded into the material, and that's about it, which is one of the reasons why this is so light. This is a wider and a thicker blade than a Delica, but it's actually about the same weight, more or less. Then you have the pivot here, and then you have these holes for the clip. It's a 4-position clip, so there, and they're just molded into the FRN. One note, if you're changing the clip position, I made mine tip-up lefty. You have to thread these screws a lot. There's a lot more threads than a normal one, probably because they're set into the FRN. And that's just something to think about right there. Now, overall, what do I think of this? I think it's a bargain. I mean, here in the U.S., you can get one of these for only maybe $20 more than a Delica costs, and you're getting S35V steel, or in the case of the older ones like this, s35vn. Comes really sharp out of the box. These things just excel at cutting, and they're just really comfortable in the hand, whether you're holding it like this, whether you're holding it like this, or indeed whether you're holding it down like this. I'll show you that is not a problem. In fact, that gives you almost a little more leverage there. Yeah, this is a really neat little thing to have. I definitely couldn't recommend it highly enough. Like I said, the ergonomics are probably going to make or break it for you, but you know, you can't go wrong. And there's a lot of people wonder, because there's no liners, how strong this is. There is no blade play in this. It's really strong. If you're worried about breaking this because there's no liners, and I'm one of those people who swears by liners, but if you're worried about breaking this because there's no liners, you're doing something wrong. You're doing something that you maybe should be using a fixed blade for, or a chisel. So there you go. My take on the Native5 lightweight. I definitely, like I said, it's quirky ergonomics and the way the handle's designed. Basically, you're probably going to be what makes or breaks it for most people. But in terms of build quality, in terms of effectiveness, in terms of you know, the bargain for the price, you can't go wrong with one of these. If it's the type of thing that you think you'd like, that it's not going to be uncomfortable to use, I would say go for it. It's just really well made. It's solid. It's not all that expensive, and I don't know if you can see that, but they're made right here in the US of A, Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. I think the Earth is a nice touch. So anyway, Lone Rider on the day after Christmas. Belated Merry Christmas to all, and yeah, that's my review of the Native5 lightweight. Lone Rider out. Get back to riding.